So today we have a new graph for you. I'll let that come up. So this graph shows each day that a Montgomery County resident tested positive for COVID-19 at any location, and that is represented by the gray bars. And the 14-day and 7-day running averages of those totals represented by the lines. So the red lines show the total number of cases. The darker red is the 7-day total, and the sort of lighter pinkier red is the 14-day running average. The blues represent cases from the community. So the darker blue is the 7-day running average, and the lighter blue is the 14-day average from the community. And then the orangey lines represent long-term care facilities. So the darker, more orange line is the 7-day average from our long-term care facilities, and the more yellow line is the 14-day average from the long-term care facilities. The black dotted line, it represents the 50 cases per 100,000 residents. That was one of Governor Wolf's metrics for considering moving our county into the yellow zone. You can see that we continue to have a downward trend in these numbers. I want to just emphasize again that this downward trend is the result of the many, many personal sacrifices so many of you have made over these last number of weeks. We are continuing to meaningfully reduce the numbers of new cases in our county. But given the amount of virus still in our midst, without continued social distancing, these numbers could quickly change and move in the wrong direction. We are getting closer every day. Please continue to stay the course. Every single person's actions, particularly someone who is positive and doesn't know it, can prolong our readiness for the yellow phase. And so that brings me to masks. I want to remind you that you are wearing a mask to protect others and to give yourself modest protection from someone else who is not wearing a mask. Masks must cover your nose and your mouth to be effective. You might remember when there were just lap seat belts in cars. And then researchers figured out how much safer it was for you when you wore a lap belt combined with a shoulder harness. Wearing your mask so that it only covers your mouth is like just having that lap belt in your car. Wearing it covering your nose and mouth does the most to keep everyone around you safe. So please cover both. Treat your mask as contaminated when you remove it. Take it off from the back and put it in a bag or set it in a location where you won't contaminate your home. And finally, please wear a mask. This is about having respect for your community and respect for those individuals who might be fighting cancer or are otherwise immunocompromised, but they still need to buy groceries. They still need to go to the drugstore, and they still need to put gas in their car just like you do. So out of respect for them, please wear a mask. I don't believe that either of my colleagues have statements today. Is that correct?
I do, Commissioner Arkoosh. This is Joe Gale.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Gale.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for listening today. I wanted to provide an update on my weekend. This weekend, I was honored to join several members of our community and members of Conshohocken VFW Post 1074 to pay respect to fallen war heroes by placing American flags on the graves of veterans at St. Matthew's Cemetery in Conshohocken. This event was organized in response to the two majority Montgomery County Commissioners' refusal to release American flags for distribution at cemeteries and recognition of those who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. It was a very humbling experience to see neighbors come together to honor local heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. I had the opportunity to see many gravestones with last names of local families who still live in our area. It was heartwarming to see descendants have the opportunity to place an American flag at the gravesite of their own ancestors who served our nation. This solemn event was made possible due to generous donations of private charity from members of our community so that this local VFW could raise the funds necessary to purchase American flags. I would like to express my gratitude and thank everyone who made this beautiful memorial for our veterans possible. Whether it was individuals who generously made contributions, members of the community who helped place flags, the leadership of the VFW, and also 6ABC who captured this story for others to see. I thank you all. I'm humbled to help lead the effort to make sure our fallen military men and women receive the proper recognition they deserve. As we are now 1 week from Memorial Day, the patriotic efforts that took place in Conshohocken have inspired many other organizations to do the same across Montgomery County. I look forward to continuing to support these efforts to make sure our fallen veterans are shown the respect they deserve on Memorial Day. Thank you, and with that, we'll turn it over to the press for questions.
All right, any questions?
No questions today.
Okay. I do just want to take a moment because I think it's particularly important, and I am putting on my doctor hat when I say the following. Commissioner Gale is known to have had direct exposure to someone who is confirmed positive with COVID-19, our colleague Commissioner Lawrence, who thankfully remains asymptomatic. Commissioner Gale has publicly stated that he refuses to be tested, and I have no evidence that he has been tested. And during the event that he just described to you, Commissioner Gale, and this you can watch it for yourself on the television, he was at this event. He did not have a mask on. He was personally handing a number of individuals who are older age and at highest risk from a serious complication from COVID-19. He was personally handing them flags with no gloves on and closer than 6 feet to them in order to hand them those flags. So this is not a comment about veterans. This is not a comment about lack of respect for veterans in any way, shape, or form. But Commissioner Gale should still be in quarantine. Having not been tested, he should be in quarantine for 14 days. And I just want to urge others not to copy this type of behavior. If you've been directly exposed and you know it, you should be tested if possible, and you should quarantine until you know you're negative for a period of days, at least a week. And as we are doing, try to stay quarantined for 14 days if possible. And certainly should not be out without a mask on, without gloves on, and not maintaining social distancing. So I would urge everyone to please be responsible, to please look out for all the people in our community. Any one of us could be positive, not have symptoms, but be contagious. And so in order to get to the yellow phase as quickly as possible and not suffer any setbacks on this good path that we have established, I beg you all to act responsibly and just assume that you could be carrying COVID-19 and that when you are out in public for the protection of others, wear a mask and please follow all the social distancing guidance. Thank you very much. Taking those steps will be the thing that gets us to the yellow phase as quickly as possible. So thank you everyone for listening today, and we will see you tomorrow at 3. Have a good afternoon.
Excuse me. This is Commissioner Gale. Commissioner Arkoosh, you can mass shame me all you want. I'm not going to sit here and be bullied for honoring fallen veterans. It's enough already with the mass shaming, the mass bullying, and creating mass hysteria. You don't need a hazmat suit, gloves, and a mask to put American flags outdoor at a cemetery. So what you just said was ridiculous, and I want to connect the dots for everyone at home who's listening. This lecture today we received from Commissioner Arkoosh about the virtues of mandatory mask wearing are a passive-aggressive shot at me for honoring veterans at St. Matthew's Cemetery this past weekend, and doing so without a mask. I was there to honor the dead and their families, not to stage a publicity stunt to show how politically correct I am. I've been very clear that people should use their own judgment in wearing masks. I'm not going to tell people when to do it or when not to do it. I was in the fresh open air and sun of a park, a cemetery to be a matter of fact, and a mask was not necessary in my opinion. It's completely different than being in a closed capacity such as a SEPTA bus or something similar to that. The people who really need a personal protective equipment are the healthcare workers and long-term care facility employees. So that was uncalled for to lecture me and lecture the residents of Montgomery County and try to scare them that a mask is necessary to be outside. I was in contact with Commissioner Lawrence 2 weeks ago, and I'm not aware of anyone else that took the test following his diagnosis of being positive that also tested positive. As far as I am aware, no one else tested positive. So that was an uncalled for cheap shot, and it's an attempt to scare the residents of Montgomery County. And I know the residents of Montgomery County have had enough of all this nonsense. And with that, we can end this conversation.
Thank you, everyone. We will see you tomorrow at 3. Have a good evening.